Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, welcome to the Necrobloom, which I also like to call Victory Bell, like the Pokemon.
I choose you, Victory Bell! Go!
Anywho, if you don't know what this guy does, he's really powerful. He is basically Feel the Dead from the command zone. On every landfall trigger, you get a plant until you hit 7, you make zombies. So I made a budget list for all of you to enjoy. Comes out to be under $100. Every card is $5 or less, depending on what it contributes. I normally make choices based on what it brings to the game. A good example, something I ended up cutting, was 3 Visits. 3 Visits is a $3, $4 card, but since all it does is ramp me, I don't want to be allocating $3 to just looking for a land. You should be spending your money towards things that win you the game. So if you're interested in building a budget deck yourself, stick around. I'll give you some tips and tricks that you want to be building. I'm just going to talk about the synergy pieces. Let's get started with Mentor the Meat. He's really strong in that whenever a creature with 2 or less power enters the battlefield, you could pay 1 mana to draw a card. Since parts of Necrobloom's triggers puts in a plant or a zombie, you'll meet the conditions of this consistently. Since you're putting in a bunch of zombies, I have some of the best stuff that pumps up zombies. It's not a zombie deck, but I'm going to take advantage of all the tokens I'm going to be making. The best thing you could do with Necrobloom is play fetch lands. The reason why that's particularly good is it guarantees that you'll hit at least 2 zombies. The other trigger at the bottom that most people don't notice is that all your lands in your graveyard have Dredge too. If you don't know what Dredge is, it replaces your draw trigger by milling yourself 2 cards and you get that land back into your hand. It works perfectly well with fetch lands because once you crack them to search for a land, they'll obviously end up in your graveyard and you'll never miss a land drop. Back to where we left off, Mentor the Meek. It doesn't work so well with things like Obelisk Averd, which on E2 you choose a creature type. You always choose zombies because in your mid to late game, you'll be making exclusively zombies and not plants. Things like this don't combo well with each other. Timeless Witness, because your stuff has Dredge and you might pitch things you don't want to necessarily end up in your graveyard, like your non-lands. This lets you get that stuff back. It also has Eternalize, so it's basically a 2-for-1. Undead Augur, whenever it or another zombie you control dies, you draw a card and lose a life. For 2 mana, it's really strong, and for 22 cents, you're getting a heck of a good deal out of it. Wayward Servant, there is an Aristocrat package in here. Whenever it or another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life, but it works great in this deck. Eliasil Core, another Aristocrat. Champion Lamhold, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Lamhold. This even triggers on your tokens that you're making, so it'll effectively just make your entire board unblockable and lets you swing out. Cruel Celebrant, another Aristocrat. Shepherd of Rot, this is a nice finisher as well for 2 mana. You could tap it to make each player lose 1 life for each zombie in play. Because you're playing Aristocrats, you should probably have more life than anybody else. You'll probably scoop up some players in its activated ability pretty consistently. Corpse Knight, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. I almost like these effects more than dying because I don't really consistently kill my stuff. If they die, it's by happenstance.
Lambs to the cosmic slaughter!
So I kind of appreciate this one and the Wayward Servant a little bit more than I do my other Aristocrat stuff. E-Whip does the same thing as Timeless Witness, but for a mana cheaper and doesn't have Eternalize. Zulaport Cutthroat, another Aristocrat. Graveborn Muse, this thing will draw you a ton of cards. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X, where X is the number of zombies you control. You also lose X life, but when you're seeing that many cards, it's almost impossible not to close out games. Opponents should be sweating if this gets to your untap step. Oracle and Moldiah, this is one of your extra land drop enablers. I remember a day when Oracle was 20 bucks, and now you get to play for $3.42. If you don't have these in your green decks, I highly recommend you start. This thing just makes your decks hum really consistently because it lets you play lands off the top of your library. If you have a lot of fetches in your deck, you could consistently save them and then shuffle your library to find another land on top of your library and make sure you consistently draw gas. Tiller Engine, this is a budget deck, so I'm going to be running a lot of tap lands. This helps me untap them. After that, it has some flex in that I could tap other people's permanents down so I could swing more profitably into people. Gitrog Monster, there is a combo with Gitrog and Necrobloom. Classic with Gitrog was Dredge 2 land, but since your commander gives all your lands Dredge, just combos from the command zone. You don't need to find the specific land that combos with it. You have to have over 7 cards in hand, go to end step, discard a land, and then the Gitrog will see that, draw you a card, and you'll go back to your cleanup step, discard a land again. And you keep doing that until you sculpt the perfect 7 cards. You could go through your entire library this way. I don't have a good follow-up for doing this. It's just for the value of having a perfect 7 cards. Benny Brex, the Zoologist. At the beginning of your end step, if you can create a token this turn, draw a card. This is one of the very few situations where you want to be saving cracking your fetch lands. Crack them on other people's turns, get a token, and then draw because of it, since you're limited to just drawing once per turn. Ancient Green Warden. This lets you play lands from your graveyard, and it doubles your land triggered effects, i.e. your commander. Azusa, Lost But Seeking. You may play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. Really accelerates your game. Our Reckoning. This is a board wipe, but it has a synergistic piece in that it has Convoke. Convoke is super strong in this deck because you can consistently make tokens to help you pay for your spells. I'm running this one, and I'm running 2 removal spells like Pile On. And Lethal Scheme. Effectively, a Lethal Scheme and Pile On should cost you 0 mana. You just tap, 4 zombies, and you could destroy a creature planeswalker for free. And you could just use the zombies that are summoning sick. Then you go to the end step of the person before you, tap those zombies down, blow something up. Overrun is a finisher, gives all your creatures +3/+3 and trample. It's been a long time since I finished people off with Overrun. I could consistently do it in this deck. You're making 5/5 zombies. If your board is big enough, I wouldn't be surprised if you could kill multiple people with this spell. Back to the Serpent. You choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards, loses X life, where X is the number of creatures they control of the chosen type. Oddly enough, you could use this for yourself, or if you want to get some chip damage and finish people off, you could with this spell. I've done that a couple of times, actually. Haven't done it on the channel, but for how often I bump into other tribal decks, I think this will be a fun card. Intangible Virtue gives creature tokens +1/+1 in Vigilance. I like Anthem effects when they're cheap. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier. For every 2 mana, I want a specific effect. If it's instant speed, better, but I care more about the CMC. I think the average of this deck is really low. It is 1.82, really dirt cheap. This deck will function, and it ramps a ton, so I don't run any stuff to protect my commander. I think you'll ramp hard enough where if people kill your commander, it's just them wasting cards. They're like, killing your commander isn't quite good enough. Inspiring Leader gives creature tokens +2/+2. Again, if I was paying beyond 2 mana, it better be giving me extra effects. Inspiring Leader does that perfectly well. Rally the Ranks, choose zombies every time. Moldavine Reclamation. This card gets criminally underplayed for 45 cents. It triggers whenever tokens die, and there's only 3 of these that do this kind of effect. This one gains you a life and draws you a card, but there's Dark Prophecy for 3 mana, triple black, and Liliana the Dreadhorde General also draws off of tokens dying, but both of those are a little out of budget or just difficult to cast in a 3-color deck, so I ended up not including them, but I'll sure as heck include Moldavine. Endless Ranks of the Dead. Beginning of your upkeep, create X 2/2 zombies, where X is the number of zombies controlled, half of them rounded down. This is another one of those spells that kind of just gets the snowball tumbling. Unfortunately, it'll give your opponents 2 turns, so you have to wait an upkeep. Those tokens have summoning sickness, but you should grow pretty out of control real fast with this spell. Beastmaster Ascension, it's an oldie and a goodie. Whenever a creature attacks, you put a counter on it. Once you have 7, your creatures get +5/+5. You'll reach the 7 counter requirement on the first attack pretty consistently. Spelunking.
Spelunking. Yeah, cave diving.
It functions like Tiller Engine, only it flexes differently. This one lets you play an additional land and lets you gain 4 life if you put a cave down. I'm not running a cave, but I do appreciate the ramp. And lands enter the battlefield untapped. Case of the Locked Hothouse. You may play additional land a turn, control 7 more lands, you solve the case. It lets you play enchantments, lands, and creatures off the top of your library. That represents 69 cards of your library. Not intended. True Conviction. This is another one of your finisher spells. Gives all your creatures double strike and lifelink. Normally I don't talk about the lands, but since this is a landfall deck, there is a rhyme and reason for the stuff that I'm playing that I want to talk about. I have an even spread between snow lands and regular basics. The reason why is because snow-covered lands, they count as different land names for the Necro to reach a zombie count. For instance, if I had a forest and a snow-covered forest in play, that counts as 2 different land names. And then everything else doesn't share a name, so you will consistently meet the Necrobloom zombie requirement within 7 lands every single time. Because I can't run the really expensive fetch lands that are like 20 bucks a piece, I have to run the ones that put stuff into play tapped, like Falling Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, Escape Tunnel, and the new one that just came out, Deceptive Landscape. I'm really excited to play these. I love these lands a lot from Modern Horizons 3. Another utility land I'm including, I guess this is the only protection piece I'm playing, is Command Beacon. It just seems too good to not play. You could sack it to put your commander from the command zone into your hand, so when it gets really expensive, you could circumvent commander tax. You give this land Dredge 2 and your commander comes down into play again, and then it really becomes not effective at just killing your commander. That brings us to the end of this deck tech. I hope you enjoyed it. I like to keep the just the facts nice and short and sweet, quick and easy. But if you enjoyed, you stayed this long, subscribe, because I'm going to be playing this deck on the 11th of this month, so in just 6 more glory days. I'm going to do 3 more deck techs with some of my more popular commanders. There's a vote right here. Necrobloom got the most popular, so I'm going to be playing that first, and then Hiergas and Azalas came close, 2nd and 3rd, and then Imsker last. To break up the monotony of doing just deck techs, I'm going to do a video every morning, starting from, I guess it'll be tomorrow by the time you see this. I'll be doing these for the next 4 days, and then I'll have, 2 days left over. I'll probably break it up and play some commanders that I hadn't gotten around to from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. For those of you who enjoy my gameplay videos, I hope you'll enjoy that. I'll come back and finish the Modern Horizons 3. Everyone take care now. Bye.